From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Keishan Haynes. Welcome. Hurricane Florence weakened to a Category 2 storm overnight. It's expected to maintain that strength when it makes landfall. With maximum sustained winds of 177 kilometers per hour, it's still a powerhouse that will batter the Carolinas coast. Meteorologists believe that the hurricane will stall and meander near the coast from Thursday night until Saturday. That could mean torrential rain, high winds, coastal erosion, and a storm surge that can last for days.
This monster of a storm is not one to ride out. When you're looking at a storm surge of this magnitude, where the National Weather Service has says that the damage is going to be unbelievable and that they cannot emphasize it enough, we know that that's a message that we should listen to.
Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Issac also continues to weaken, but it's not an all clear though. The tropical storm winds are expected to start hitting the Lesser Antilles later this afternoon into tomorrow. There are tropical storm warnings for Martinique, Guadeloupe, and Dominica. And still not taking any chances after last year's Hurricane Maria, Dominica has issued an island-wide state of emergency until noon on Friday. A curfew will be in effect for the duration.
You don't necessarily take the decision to declare a state of emergency or curfew because you think that there may be some security risk to the country per se. Sometimes these are taken to ensure that there is a greater level of control of the space to allow the essential services to carry the duties. And fundamentally too, to protect people from themselves.
Puerto Rico is not expected to take a direct hit from Tropical Storm Issac. However, San Juan Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz said that the territory is in a weakened state and not fully prepared.
Are we ready? Look, nobody's ready for a Hurricane 5 or a Hurricane 4. And we are weakened right now, and we're much in control than we were last year. But certainly when you have 3,000 tarps or roofs, these people are now not going to be able to withstand even a Hurricane Category 1 in their homes. So there's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of shelters and so forth. Are we completely ready? No. We would be lying if we said we are ready, and neither is the central government completely ready.
The mayor has criticized President Donald Trump for remarks he made about last year's hurricane. Trump has said that his administration's response to Hurricane Maria was a, quote, unsung success. Mayor Cruz told Reuters that Trump does not get it, and unfortunately people died because of that. An estimated 3,000 people died in Puerto Rico as a result of the storm, which knocked out power to all 3.4 million residents.
The world has seen, and the majority of the American people have seen how neglectful he was towards the people of Puerto Rico. If he calls a success or an unsung success 3,000 people dying on his watch, definitely he doesn't know what success is.
Switching gears now, teachers in Colombia are set to strike in a few hours. They demand that the government provide guarantees for safe and accessible public education. Teachers are asking that their lives be protected and to be provided proper access to healthcare. They also demand the repeal of a proposed law that would limit access to food programs for students. The Colombian Federation of Workers, or FECODE, will lead the marches. In Guatemala City, families are expected to gather to denounce the excessive police force used during Wednesday's protest. Indigenous communities took to the streets to protest the expulsion of the International Commission Against Impunity. They are saying this decision by President Jimmy Morales only protects the pro-government forces and congressmen from the ruling party. 60 social movements joined the protest. And more than 2,000 police and army locked down the city center. The state also deployed a section of the elite soldiers in the army specialized for anti-terrorist operations. Our correspondent in Guatemala City, Mario Rosales, was at Wednesday's protests.
I'm standing outside the National Palace, where demonstrators have gathered to demand the resignation of President Jimmy Morales. This protest is made up of various campesino, feminist, and artist organizations. They also demand that, along with the president, all lower house representatives and members of the president's cabinet tender resignations as well. This comes as a result of Jimmy Morales' decision to end the rule of the International Commission Against Impunity and banning the entrance of the head of the commission, Ivan Velázquez, to the country. Guatemalans remain expectant over what the Constitutional Court's ruling will be on this case, whether they will demand that President Morales reverse his decision or they will approve it.
Thank you, Mario. Police in Costa Rica cracked down on protesters on the third day of their general strike. Police broke into the National University, arresting students taking part in the strike. A number of students were beaten. Citizens took to Twitter to denounce the police violence against the young people, who they say were simply protesting peacefully. Universities in Costa Rica usually enjoy autonomy. The rector also condemned the police incursion, saying that they caused damage to part of the facility. Hours before, almost 300,000 people rallied outside Congress. The strike is in opposition to a tax plan that unions say jeopardizes the welfare of poor Costa Ricans. They want the government to negotiate changes to this plan, but the president has refused to talk until the strike is called off.
We are seeing close to 300,000 people. We are telling the Legislative Assembly and to Carlos Alvarado to look for an alternative solution. That's what the union has proposed. But the problem is that the government does not want to listen to us.
Our correspondent in San Jose, Fernando Francia, sent this report.
A massive march was held in the morning, ending at the Legislative Assembly, where they are debating the tax reform, which what the Republic Sectors Union are protesting against. After night fell, the police forced their way in the University of Costa Rica, violating the university autonomy. This has been classified as a very serious act, even by the President of the Republic. For that reason, there will have to be an investigation into what happened. Several students were injured and arrested, and even journalists who were at the university covering the events were violently beaten. This has totally overdone this strike itself because of the brutal police repression and a small group of student protesters.
Francia in San Jose. Thousands blocked the main avenues of Buenos Aires, Argentina on Wednesday as anger continues over President Macri's austerity measures. Labor unions and social groups are angry about budget cuts to public services, which severely affect low-income Argentines. Inflation has risen to 31% and it's still climbing. People have to pay more for transportation and electricity as public utility subsidies have also been slashed.
It's an uncertainty to know day in, day out how you are going to get by because it's getting worse. Every day you find yourself with worse things. Then you ask yourself, how can I feed my children today? What can I feed them tomorrow? If it continues like this, the truth is we are worse off every day.
State Workers Union ATE were among those taking part in the 24-hour strike.
Their slogan, so that every worker keeps their job, no to state firings, and yes to the rehiring of all those sacked. With a big turnout, the general strike was felt in all of Argentina's provinces.
Since the last night, there are mobilizations and vigils. They are not going to be able to cover this up. The government wants to take our jobs. The consequence? Thousands of people in the streets. If Macri doesn't stop, the workers will make him stop.
Social movements, trade unions, party leaders and members of Congress all joined the protest. They also demanded the setting up of parity commissions to negotiate.
This destruction of the state responds to a clear class consciousness of those that govern us, but they will not achieve it. We will keep fighting, and we will keep on fighting for the cuts not to be approved. That would be hell for our people.
After the dissolution of 11 ministries, the state workers promised to mobilize against Macri's administration. But the main rally, union leaders announced new actions.
We ratified the strike for the 24th in the Plaza de Mayo. Now I call all trade unions to join the strike on the 25th. And when the budget is discussed, a huge mobilization will take place in front of the Congress to reject what they're trying to sign, which will only bring hunger and inequality.
Faced with a brutal offensive by the governing alliance, which is attacking the most vulnerable sectors of Argentine society, the union leaders say unity in action remains the most powerful weapon the working class has to fight Macri's measures.
Let's take a short break now. More news from around the region after this.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Saturdays, only on LSU.
Welcome back. The trial period for the new system for buying fuel in Venezuela is just over 2 weeks old now. It's part of a fuel protection plan initiated by the government to stop fuel smuggling at the border with Colombia. The system is being tested in over 300 service stations. Each station is equipped with a fingerprint reader and a QR code scanner so that each citizen can enjoy fuel subsidies. And 86 Venezuelan citizens have landed at the Simón Bolívar International Airport in Caracas after leaving Argentina. This is the latest group to return home after they say they experienced xenophobia and exploitation abroad. The Return to the Homeland program introduced by President Nicolas Maduro has 3 phases. First is registration, second is coordination to bring them back, and the third is reintegration. Luis Tarvera was at the airport.
Flight carrying 86 migrants back from Argentina on its way to Caracas. At the Simón Bolívar Airport in Caracas, friends and family eagerly awaited their arrival.
I'm waiting for my son. He left with great expectations, but this experience was not at all what he was expecting. He was being exploited over there. They overwork people and pay them very little. He's a young boy. He did not deserve to be treated that way. I have noticed that Venezuelans are looked at with anger abroad. I don't know why. Maybe because we are smart because of our personalities. I'm just glad he's back.
Finally back in Venezuela, they tell us why they returned.
There's a lot of discrimination and xenophobia. I even saw signs that said they did not welcome Venezuelans, Peruvians, Colombians. I was not expecting this treatment from the people in Argentina. I thought we'd be welcome.
The economic and social reality of other countries ended their plans abruptly. The truth about life there is hidden by the mainstream media to worsen Venezuela's image.
The problem with Argentina is that it's going through an economic crisis. Finding work is hard for Argentinians, so it was much worse for us.
The concern shown by foreign governments for Venezuelan migrants ends once these people enter their territory. Once there, they are faced with poor economic conditions that are worsened by the spread of xenophobia.
Inflation is high and you are not given opportunities even when you're a professional. My daughter is very capable. She knows how to do many things, but she was never given a chance.
So we decided to come back because at least here we will move forward.
Durante el tiempo que estuvimos allá, pues, y entonces, no, vámonos a nuestro país.
These migrants return to start a new stage in their lives. They say they are ready to work and help their country. They're grateful for the return to the homeland plan, through which the government continues to set up more flights for migrants in foreign lands.
Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arias has called on his Colombian counterpart to start talks regarding migration. Arias said that Colombian Foreign Minister Carlos Oms Trujillo has so far been difficult to work with. In a tweet, he urged Trujillo to openly discuss the situation of migrants in Colombia. Arias has addressed the United Nations Council for Human Rights in Geneva, Switzerland. Our correspondent Eduardo Marin was there.
Here in Geneva, the Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arias has held meetings with representatives of different countries, and he spoke to this United Nations meeting and said that Venezuela is not experiencing a humanitarian crisis, but rather an economic crisis caused by the United States and the European Union. He also sought help from allied countries to vote against the new report on fundamental rights and freedoms in Venezuela to be presented at the end of the month.
Thank you, Eduardo. Residents of a poor neighborhood in the capital of Paraguay are being threatened with eviction. The residents of Bañados have been meeting in a social forum to discuss how to resist.
In Asunción, 100,000 people live in neighborhoods prone to flooding from the river Paraguay. A few years ago, the government began building a coastal road which goes through these communities. Residents are demanding the right to stay put.
The citizens of the Bañado area need to be respected. This construction site is forcing out families. There has been no answer to better the neighborhoods, but what they are trying to do here is see that people drown from all the rain. We demand a quick answer from the authorities.
Some of these communities along the riverbank are built on land owned by the local government. They want the city hall to recognize the years they've lived here and not evict them.
We are 60 families in San Miguel Guerrero and have lived here for years. It's not how they say. In 2005, the protected area was signed over, but we were already living there. I have lived here for 50 years, and they don't care about that.
In the Bañado neighborhood, residents are demanding a voice in the plans that affect them. In the case of the new road, there have been many evictions, but no proposals for new housing.
There should be no more forced displacements, because that's what's been going on. There has not been any housing proposals for this territory. The organization shows that there should be housing in the territory.
These neighborhoods often suffer flooding when the level of the Paraguay River rises. And then there are the new roads. They want the public planning process to be opened up to public participation and to respect the right to remain.
Millions of Colombians, mostly campesinos and ethnic community members, are victims of forced displacement. Human rights defenders have condemned the government for denying the campesinos their right to reclaim their lands.
The Colombian Lawyers Commission have published a report about the problems in the implementation process of restoring land back to the rightful owners. More than 40,000 campesino families have been denied the right to the land by the government.
Se ha adoptado un decreto, el 1167.
Decree 1167 sets a 3-month deadline to apply for land redistribution. This worries us a lot because we think that all the denied requests need to be reviewed in the first place.
En primer lugar, creemos que deben revisarse esas solicitudes que hayan sido negadas.
Alejandro Suarez tells us how families have been deprived. This campesino leader was a victim of forced displacement by the army. He remembers the killing and framing of his comrades.
La organización social,
the social organizations, in particular the campesino organizations, were labeled subversive. And if you're subversive, you're from the guerrilla and the terrorist. And thus you're exposed to being killed, and society endorses this kind of crime.
Alejandro says that almost 90% of the victims haven't reclaimed their lands because they feel vulnerable to the government.
Una alianza perversa.
There is a perverse alliance that involves the army, the paramilitary, the national and local elites, and a drug trafficking business, and it has the purpose of the appropriation of the land.
The report also states victims aren't receiving any advice, and that their constitutional rights are being violated, and the lack of information has made it impossible for affected people to know the whereabouts of their land.
We request the boundary information, the location, the owner, and it hasn't been provided to us under the argument that they haven't processed it. We don't know about the whereabouts of these lands. It's possible they now belong to companies, landlords, or even are in the hand of politicians.
Decree 1167, which was sped up by the Social Development and Agriculture Ministry, sets a deadline for people to reclaim the land. Calls have been made to suspend this, so that all those affected can claim their lands back indefinitely.
Some news from around the Caribbean. St. Lucia's opposition leader is preparing a motion of no confidence against Prime Minister Alan Chastanet. Chastanet has been facing public scrutiny for privatizing a public hospital. Opposition leader Philip Pear is also accusing the Prime Minister of corruption and targeting organizations which oppose him. Pear led an anti-government protest through the streets of Castries over the weekend.
Very soon, I will be going to Parliament to move a vote of no confidence in the government of Alan Chastanet. Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? Will you join us when we move in the vote of no confidence? Do you agree with that? Do you agree that Chastanet must go? So say after me, Chastanet must go. Chastanet must go.
Chastanet's Workers' Party is calling the vote a mere political posturing. But they're not hiding from the motion either, saying it will be embarrassingly defeated whenever it is submitted. Let's take another short break now. World News is next.
Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is in China to discuss political and economic cooperation. The Chinese Foreign Ministry reported that Maduro was invited by President Xi Jinping. Both men will hold a meeting to have a signing ceremony later today. Maduro will be in China until Sunday. And now let's take a look at some other stories from around the world.
A protest against sex education in schools was countered by pro-LGBT supporters in Cologne, Germany. Demo for All is an organisation that advocates for traditional family values. They held banners against gender ideology and the sexual education of diversity. However, their pleas were met by a larger demonstration promoting the rights of the LGBT community under the motto diversity instead of simple-mindedness. Both protests were peaceful. Pope Francis is to meet with Catholic Church leaders from the United States after being implicated in a cover-up of a sexual scandal. Last month, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano accused the Pope of knowing about the sexual misconduct of a former cardinal and doing nothing about it. The meeting was requested by the US Conference of Catholic Bishops who want to discuss the allegations. A hijabi bodybuilder in Indians Kerala is breaking stereotypes. Nothing stops Maziha Banu from competing in weightlifting competitions wearing her scarf. She's fully supported by her parents, who have every reason to feel proud of her. Banu has won several medals and now is training for the upcoming World Arm Wrestling Championship next month in Turkey.
I feel so special, I feel so preserved, and I'm really so comfortable in this hijab because my identity is my hijab and I don't want to change this identity for any reason. Maybe it is sports, my work, my duty, anything, whatever reason is it, we can use it anywhere. So I'm really proud to be an hijabi sportswoman, and I wanted to know the world that an hijabi can also do this, all kind of things. So
the most powerful typhoon of the season is closing in on the Philippines. It could make landfall on Saturday. Typhoon Mangkhut, with winds of 205 kilometers per hour, has been categorized as a super typhoon, equivalent to a Category 5 hurricane. The northern Philippines, southern China, Vietnam, and northern Laos are in the typhoon's path. The army is preparing evacuations. The emergency services and humanitarian aid agencies have been put on high alert. And finally, people in Ghana are paying their respects to the former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Among them, his wife, Kate Nane, and the ceremony is taking place right now at the International Conference Center in Accra. Annan led the UN from 1997 to 2006. The funeral will be followed by a private burial at the capital's military ceremony and there will be a military ceremony with a 17-gun salute. And that brings us to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, find them on our website, telesortv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English and Kijan Haynes, thank you for watching.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico.